sewing, you will no doubt come across a project that requires or recommends you sew with a thick fabric like denim, canvas, or wool. These will often cause grief for people who haven't worked with them before, leading to broken needles, damaged fabric, and a bruised ego. So I'll be showing you how to avoid those issues with some tips and tricks for working with generally thick fabric. Keep in mind we won't cover leather and vinyl in this video as those materials require a different process. To start with, pre-washing your fabric can soften the fabric slightly. This softer effect can also be achieved by ironing your fabric with a steam iron beforehand, which makes the fabric softer so it's not as stiff and as easier to sew with. The most common cause of issue with sewing with thick fabric is how you handle your fabric. You can see here how I'm pulling on the fabric at the back. The needle starts pulling away with the fabric. This leads to the needle hitting the needle plate, which can break or damage the needle. So just be gentle, sew slowly, and avoid pushing or pulling your fabric through the machine. A possible way to mitigate breaking the needle is by using a thickened needle. Almost all household machines will use the same needle style, but refer to your user guide to confirm. A popular choice is a denim needle in either a size 116 or 110/18 when stitching on heavier woven fabrics like denim and canvas. There are also thicker stretch needles that you can use for thick stretch fabric such as polar fleece or sweatshirt fabric. If you can, use clips instead of pins. Using pins on thick fabric can cause the fabric to warp and not sit flat when sewing. You can also bend the pins. Using clips ensures you don't warp the fabric and that your clips stay nice and intact. You'll also want to avoid reverse stitching as much as possible. If done incorrectly, the fabric will pull the needle with it and hit the needle plate and snap. The NV50S has a lock stitch function, which allows you to secure your stitches in the same way a reverse or back tack stitch would. So opt to use this feature instead of reverse stitching. The final tip for sewing thick fabrics is locking off your presser foot. If your machine is having trouble feeding the fabric at the very beginning, you can use the presser foot locking pin on the back of the zigzag foot. So raise your presser foot, level the foot, then press and hold the button on the back. Then you can lower your presser foot. This ensures that the presser foot remains level while sewing, allowing fabric to be fed smoothly. Lastly, it's a good idea to know generally how many layers your machine can sew. Most home machines can sew about 4 to 5 layers without an issue, but you can check this by grabbing some samples of your fabric and the needle you're going to use and push the needle gradually through the layers of fabric until you start to notice some resistance. So as you can see, that was pretty fine, but if I fold this over in half again and push my needle through again, you can see that there's some resistance forming there. So that's probably the maximum amount of layers I can sew with this fabric and this needle. And that's all you need to know to sew thick fabrics on the NV50S.